Good afternoon, everyone. Next Generation Weather Forecaster Joe Shaka here. Before we take a look at Invest 98L and its satellite imagery representation, we have a lot to talk about today. We're talking about Invest 98L off the East Coast, Southeast U.S. coast, and we're going to also take a look very closely at Tropical Storm Dorian, which is going to become more of a concern rather than 98L. So let me start off here with my intro slide here, stormchasersjs.com, so you can find a lot of more of my various products that I make besides these YouTube videos. So take a look here at the National Hurricane Center's area of interest. Let me go quickly here to full slide. Doing this is a little bit more different because I'm bouncing back and forth between Firefox and PowerPoint. Once we have a system going like this, so I can cover multiple things in the same video. So let me get yellow. So here in this yellow circle is 98L, has an 80% chance to develop. And then down here, obviously, very plain to see where Dorian is located. So let me escape out of this here. I want to discard my drawings because when I want to redo something, it causes a problem. And I cannot easily do things and move along. So here is 98L. This is off the southeast coast, as you just saw. A couple things to note here is, first of all, I do not have my mouse on here. But if you see on the bottom between 72 west and 74 west, and if you go up to just south of 32 north, you can see where we have our low-level circulation, and you can see how that low-level circulation is very exposed, and it appears to be drifting off to the southwest. That appears in these last several frames. So that's the first thing to notice, is that you have an exposed center. Second thing to notice is you have all the thunderstorm development on the east and southeast side of where that low-level center is. And I'd say third of all is on the west side, you have some shear and some dry air trying to get involved with this, as well as you have air coming off the Carolina coastline, coming down and slowly, I think, getting fed into this thing. So this thing is certainly having a hard time getting going, and I do not believe this will get going at all. I believe it will remain an invest. It may very slightly make it to tropical depression status over the next few days, but time is slowly running out for this system, as conditions I just do not believe are going to become very positive and very favorable, if you will, for this to make a name. And the next name on the list would be Erin. So if this were happen to get named, I would call it, storm that's not really there. Joe Bassardi likes to call these ham sandwiches, but the next name on the list would be Erin. But there is what this looks like on satellite imagery right now. Now going back over here to PowerPoint, you can see, again, 80% chance over the next 5 days. Now looking at the track guidance for this, you can see pretty much heads out to sea, gets close to Nova Scotia. I believe that's a little bit too far to the north and east. Now I do believe it's going to be a little bit further on the southwest side, given it's now backing southwest, and some of the other guidance that I've been looking at that indicates that. So there's the National Hurricane Center guidance. Here is a European model. Let me grab my pen for this. I'll use purple so you can see where the model has it, I guess here, and it doesn't really seem to be backing off southwest, but this will continue to move northerly direction and then take off here to northeast by come Thursday. And I'm worried about southern New England getting some pretty decent rainfall from this, even though the center, the lowest pressure, will remain, I think, south and east of the benchmark, 40 north, 70 west. I do believe with this cold front coming through Wednesday into Thursday that some of the moisture will get robbed from whatever this thing is and thrown back, so you could get some heavy rain Wednesday into Thursday in parts of southern New England, as this area of interest continues to pass off well to our east and moving northeast at that. Here is a GFS model, same kind of thing, loops around and takes off, getting close to Nova Scotia. And this here, let me switch my pen color to blue. Hopefully blue shows up on this chart. Not really. Let me try yellow, how it shows up on this. Maybe not yellow. Try dark red. That's better. So this here is the 12Z NAM, 12 kilometer 12Z NAM, the 500 millibar flow. And what I want to notice here is, first of all, if I can find my cursor, southwest here of Hudson Bay, you have this big upper level feature and a very powerful storm that's going to be taking off here to the northeast, close to Hudson Bay, Wednesday into Thursday. So you're going to get this big trough that develops here at 500 millibars all the way to 200 millibars. Very deep feature. You're going to have 98L somewhere around here, and this will continue again, pull up and get pulled east. And then there's the cold front coming through New York State at that time. You can see how there's some lift and some heavy shower potential, with this Thursday again leading to that threat of flooding rain Thursday in parts of southern New England. Excuse me. And then the 12C NAM. I think there's some dry air. I think there's some dry air coming into my office over here from the Saharan air layer, because it's been pretty robust this year. So let me just grab a drink of water here so we can continue on with this presentation. Much better. Oh, the adventures of doing these videos. I don't know. But I'm not going to restart this over since I'm, 5 or so minutes into this, I guess, at this point. Whatever. But anyway, here is the 12Z NAM, and I'll use, purple for this. So you can see what the NAM has this thing Thursday morning. There's the low off the coast, and then here's the front with that very heavy rainfall potentially here in southern New England as we work our way into the day on Thursday. So that's the 12Z NAM with that particular situation. Now, here is the more interesting, if you will, and possibly more of a threat situation down here is Tropical Storm Dorian. So you can see this is the spaghetti plots where it is located as of 8 a.m. this morning. And you can see the tracks here nicely clustered coming up here to the southeastern part of the United States. Something we will have to watch, though, with Dorian for areas of Puerto Rico, which is this island right in through here, and the Dominican Republic, which is right over here. Here's Haiti. Is if this storm, Dorian, tracks on the northeast side of the ensemble guidance here that you see and some of the other guidance that we're going to go through, is that Dorian's is going to be able to escape some of the shear that's happening down over here where I'm circling. So there's some very strong easterly shear in through here. Now, if this system, Dorian, takes a more southwesterly track, it's going to be closer to the shear that's down here, and that may rip him apart. But if he stays on the northeastern side of this cone of ensemble guidance, he will be more removed from the shear and have more of a favorable atmosphere to develop. And also, it will remain north of the big islands in through here, and there's a lot of high elevation through here, which will also rip apart Dorian. So if Dorian goes over the DR, especially the central and western DR, Haiti, with all that high terrain, you have that shear off to the southwest side of it, Dorian's probably going to get ripped apart, and then it also has to fight Cuba, and a storm going over Cuba, especially given the state that it's already in, Dorian, that it's probably not going to survive going through the Caribbean. It's a very hostile environment. But if it stays on the northeastern side, once you get past north of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, it's fair game, and I'll switch over the color so you can see what area I'm talking about. So this area here in red that I'm circling, if it can get into there intact, it's fair game for this to really strengthen into the Bahamas and likely impact Florida by the weekend. It's Labor Day weekend, so I always look for a hurricane around Labor Day weekend. That's just part of what I do. Looking for trouble. So there we are through 5 days, the end of the week going into Saturday. So that's what the ensemble guidance looks like from there. Here's the GFS. Again, many of the members staying north of the islands in through here, so this would favor development, given the atmosphere being quite conducive for development in that area once it gets past later in the week. And then we'll see what happens after that. Maybe there's a trough that comes through and it starts playing games here on the eastern part of the state of Florida. Now, the European looks like this. I'll switch my color over to yellow. And you can see the European keeping this also quite weak. And again, keeping many of the members north of the islands here, and then starting to get interesting in the Bahamas and eastern Florida by the end of the week and into the weekend. And then after that, we'll reevaluate the pattern going past it. But I just want to get this thing up to Florida to see what this may look like before we start talking about any further impacts down the road. But again, there's what the European ensemble looks like. For that, here's the European operational. Let me grab my pen. You can see the wind swath this is, and you can see how it keeps it over the water, and it keeps it away from the land masses down here, and then begins to crank this up later on in the week, and then brings it into Florida by the weekend and by Labor Day itself. So this is something, again, to keep a very, very sharp eye on in the Bahamas and for the state of Florida in time. Here is the GFS, by the way, that brings it through here, and then, believe it or not, I ran it all the way through. So there's the wind swath through Friday night, and then it takes it right over the Dominican and Haiti and pretty much gets rid of it entirely after that, and there's nothing else to track if that were to happen. Also, again, here's that wind shear. You can see wind shear increasing over here upwards of 15 to close to 20 knots, and anything past really about 15 knots is dead for a tropical entity, especially if it's a weak system. Any wind shear greater than 15 knots begins to disrupt its whole processes. And then again, land masses in there is the final decay, is the final, if you will, for a system like this. So if it gets into the DR, if it gets into Haiti with this kind of wind shear, it's pretty much game over for Dorian. Now, with all that said for Dorian, here is my track forecast. Again, I'm very close to the European with this. I have it 55 knots. This evening, it's already at 50 knots, 60 miles an hour, and I slowly strengthen it. Maybe I'm too weak there on Wednesday at 50 knots, but there could be some sheer dry air. You never know with these small systems, so I'm keeping it on the conservative side for intensity and then ramping it up later on in the week to a hurricane once it gets into the Bahamas by the day on Friday, and then next Saturday closing in on the state of Florida as an 85-mile-an-hour hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane at that. So we will see how this goes for now. But anyone from obviously the islands, the Antilles being impacted, let me grab my pen up here for illustration purposes. So the islands is already tropical storm warnings and hurricane watches up for this area here. Puerto Rico, you're up next, I believe, Wednesday night into Thursday. This will begin to impact you guys. I could see 8 p.m. Wednesday, have the center right around there. And then later on the week, we'll worry about the southeastern Bahamas for any additional impacts. Once we see what track it takes through the DR and Haiti, if it were to take a track through there, maybe it would be less of a system through there by then. But again, if it stays over water here like I have it, it's more of a threat for the island chain, and we'll review that later on in the week. That is it for now, and thank you for watching.